Okay, this is where we're at now. What I've done here is I've lowered the concave parts of the shell here in between, and these will be rounded over, and then the groove put in as these are here. So the flat that you're seeing here is pretty level with the flat here. So that's going to be the finished flat. So what I'm going to do now is just go through and just round these convex shapes over. So let me turn this where I can kind of access it a little bit here. This is a number 5, and it really doesn't matter. You could use a number 5 or a number 3 or number 7. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to round this over. You got to watch the grain direction. Here I'm kind of going across grain. And again, like I said, this is a slow process. It's not something that you can really rush. And if you take your time, you have a whole lot less sanding to do. I sand at the end because I want to get a uniform finish. And as I said, this show you the difference. This was sanded a little bit here. This is off the tool here, and you can see the facets, which is kind of cool, but it's better when it's uniform. And when I sand this and this, it all takes a finish the same. And you want that uniformity in your finish. Now when you're thinking about rounding these over, you know, this is your high, the center. So I'm just running this basically to the center line. See, on this side, I'm pretty close to it. I'm keeping my tools sharp. It makes it a whole lot easier. And you can see where I've dug in a little bit here, but it straightens out. tell you a story where this mahogany came from. When I built this box over 30 years ago, I purchased this mahogany and a bunch of other mahogany from a gentleman who lived in the same area as I did, and got to know him. And he actually had lived in Honduras and Belize a bit, and I guess he learned how to import stuff, and he imported a whole pole barn full of mahogany that he had, and he had a bandsaw mill that he was cutting it up and other things and stuff. And somehow he also got a hold of Zirconi, which I never used because I didn't have a project for it, never bought any. But interestingly, he while he was down there, somehow he learned of and got a hold of a huge mahogany tree that had fallen in a ravine, and apparently was very difficult to get out, but through some ingenuity and stuff, he was able to harvest that tree, which resulted in a tree that had, I believe, a quilted figure in it. It was some kind of figure, very rare figure that that he had. I think it was quilted mahogany. As a matter of fact, he was featured. This man's name is Don Smith. He was featured in Fine Woodworking regarding this mahogany that he had, and he actually won some awards and stuff with this figured mahogany that he had. And he had built a table with some of it, and was later offered $21,000 at the time. This would be back in the 80s for the table, because this was so rare. And the mahogany I bought from him didn't have that figure in it. And other than this is all I have left of what I purchased from him. No, that's not right. I built a couple tables also, but I had purchased quite a bit, and I had it stored. And when I got divorced, I moved it around a few times, and then realized this is, kind of futile, and I ended up selling a bunch of it for a steal. I wish I had been on the other end of that transaction, because the guy got a great bargain for some fantastic wood. And Mr. Smith, actually, from what I understand, was talked about in a book, because this gentleman, a research scientist or zoologist or whatever, he was researching and wanted to make some kind of sanctuary for the jaguar. And he actually provided a place for him to live while he was doing his research down there. I think the book is called Jaguar. See, the grain wants to cut. I can't go that way. I'm going to have to come back this way. But he had given him a place to stay, and was kind of featured, I think, in the first chapter of this book, from what I understand. And Mr. Smith is now in his late 70s, still around, and from what I understand, he's not cutting wood anymore, but he still has that quilted mahogany table. So, boy, I'd love to put my hands on that today. This mahogany I chose because it was really straight grained. I wanted a straight grain because I wanted to feature the shell carving rather than the wood itself. So this one is very, very straight grained. Nothing unusual about it. So anyway, systematically I'm going to go through and I'm going to round these over. And I don't want to bore you with all that, but when I get that done, we'll come back and then we will put these grooves in here, and then of course it'll be cleaned up at the end, and then I'll have to move on to this section here. I've started because it's kind of a tedious thing, and I just don't like to do it all at once, but as you can see, this is all one piece of wood. This is not carved and attached. This is I relieved all of this. This is all part of one piece of around 2-inch wood. And when you're carving these separately, you know, it's a lot easier to come down, and if you hit down into the surrounding background and leave a mark, it's not a big deal. But when you're doing it like this, if you do something like that, you're going to have a lot of cleanup. And I already do, just as a matter of course of doing this. So all of this has to be cleaned up, and it's very tedious. So I started doing a little bit of it, but it's going to require a lot more. And I like to spend, as much as no one likes sanding, I spend time sanding and getting it right, because the joy of a piece like this is in the finished product, is in the finish. And if you don't prepare it, you rob yourself of the joy of the beauty that you intended. I don't know how else to say it. It's just, I've tried to cut corners in the past and it just doesn't work out. Then you're not satisfied with what you've done. And it's just, it takes the fun out of it. So anyway, I'll finish this and we'll come back.